Every now and then, we get what most Irish people would call a bit of a notion. For me, sometimes they pass, but sometimes they make you hop on a bike here in Wicklow and see if you can make it all the way to Italy. It was November of 23. I had just come off the back of my first taste of proper endurance events. And I suppose I wanted to do a bit of a fundraiser. Like, I had done some fundraising for Laura Lynn Children's Hospice and Temple Street Children's Hospital, which are both very close to my heart. But I suppose this time I wanted to pick a cause that applied to more people. And when you read the stat that 1 in 2 people are affected by cancer at some point in their lives, the cause becomes very easy to pick. I've had relatives myself and friends that have been affected, and the unfortunate reality is everyone can kind of say that now. That was my external motivation, which gave the whole challenge something bigger than just myself, which was great. What happens is you're forced to commit, you're forced to train properly, and you're forced outside your comfort zone, which, as cliche as that sounds, it does force you to improve and grow. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I suppose I wanted a bit of an adventure as well, and the challenge just embodied all of that. January 24, I started the actual specific cycling training. Lots of miles, but I suppose the unforeseen challenge and preparation was the logistics of the whole thing. So my arrogant self thought that, I'll figure that out as I go. But I'll never forget, I decided to do an overnight cycle, my first overnight cycle trip. I tried to cycle from Enniscorthy to Dungarvan. So I packed up the bike, had the tent, had all my gear, and I think I made it about 4 kilometers down the road and I got my first puncture. And of course, I had a repair kit with me that I thought I can figure that out on the fly, and ended up having to get a lift back with a local man back to my car. And this was 6 weeks before I planned to leave to cycle to Italy. So you can imagine the shock and the panic when I realized that how underprepared I was. But it's those moments that force you then to reevaluate, realize where you're coming up short, and fill in the gaps. The exact route wasn't set in stone, but here was the rough plan. Leave home in Wicklow, cycle to Rosslare, get a ferry to Wales, cycle across the UK down to Dover, get a ferry to Dunkirk, then make my way up to Bruges and head east until I hit the Rhine, where I would hug it south down to Switzerland, where I'd cross the Alps and finish in Verona, Italy. The UK was definitely tougher than I expected. I suppose I was still just getting used to the lifestyle of what was essentially a homeless man with a bike. I was having to find places to camp every night, trying to plan my routes every day, and figure out how to get enough calories in as I went. The real challenge with something like this is the pure relentlessness of it. When you do an event or a race, you can go home afterwards, put the feet up, recover. With this, there was no real turning off. Every day was the same repeat. Day 1 went about as well as it could have, to be honest. Yeah, overall just a solid fucking day. Got grub, got down to Rosslare well ahead of time. Met a couple of characters already, like met this old lad who was chatting away to me about the trip. He was gassed. I caught some of it on camera. Ferry took about 3 hours. Wake up, pack up the tent, usually cook something in a field somewhere, then try get back on the bike and ride another 100 plus kilometers regardless of the weather. Now don't get me wrong, it wasn't all suffering. It was actually great for the most part, and I did get an Airbnb or hostel when I needed it. I finally got to France. I am sitting on the Belgian border right now. That road right there is the Belgian border. So I'm about to cross into Belgium. The weather is unbelievable. It's sunny. The ground is flat. There's cycle paths everywhere. It's literally exactly what I wanted. Passing through France, Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany definitely had its challenges. I had punctures, fell off the bike at one stage, snapped a gear cable and had some brutal days of weather. But strangely enough, it was probably the most enjoyable part of the journey. I don't know if it's the region I'm in, or maybe they just don't want to fucking talk to me, but I'm finding less and less people speak English in this part of Germany. So last night I stayed in this little Italian, staring at my bike, not wanting to leave, just not wanting to do it today. I've only about 90 kilometers to do. I'm staying in a German couple's camper van tonight, but it's raining, my legs are sore. This is day 15 with no breaks, so I'm feeling it. Look at that. Look at that. Getting through the Alps was a bitch. Some of the toughest days physically that I've ever had, but a truly unforgettable experience. My dad flew over and joined me for 2 days in the Alps. At first, I actually wasn't sure if I wanted him to come. I thought it might take away from the challenge, but I could not have been more wrong. I am truly grateful for being able to share the experience with him, and it's some of the best crack I've ever had with him to this day. The route I had initially planned over the Alps was closed due to bad weather, so it meant I had to cycle over 2 mountain passes rather than one, which meant more elevation, more time on the bike, more cold temperatures, but I must say the route was absolutely stunning. Once I came down the other side of the Alps and into Italy, it really did feel like the hardest part was done, and that was true. The last couple of days in Italy, the weather was nicer, the finish line was in sight, and I was no longer kind of thinking, can I finish this? So a load of people along the way kept telling me about this big cycle race in Italy. Apparently it's one of the biggest cycling events in the world outside of the Tour de France. And I am after accidentally stumbling across it. Lads after going by there a second ago, unreal. I must say it was really enjoyable kind of going back through some of the footage throughout the journey and getting to kind of relive it a little bit, because there was a lot that I had actually never seen myself since I shot the footage. And I definitely learned a few things along the way. The biggest thing for me is that no matter where you go, people are people. People are sound. Seeking challenges, discomfort is something you should do. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. It forces you outside your comfort zone, and you really do improve and grow in that time, as cliche as that sounds. And like, that's why I try push that on gym members a little bit as well, like relative to where they're at. any of them will tell you that, like, I try to push them and nudge them towards, you know, events, challenges, things that they're kind of scared to do, because I know deep down they do want to do it and they just need that extra little push. And what happens every time is that they realize that they're actually able to do so much more than they thought. Because even if you fail, you do learn something from it. You know, you realize where your limit is or where you were coming up short, and all that stuff is valuable. So there isn't really such thing as failure when it comes to those kind of challenges. We got to raise 10 grand for the Irish Cancer Society, and I met loads of people. I done some solo traveling. I pushed myself physically, and it was one of the most memorable months of my life.